Hello, hello, here's our next project. This one, this is what the kit looks like. So let's go over this beauty. So we're going to layer the flower again, depending which video you have watched first. I'll go over it again. So we've got the 3 layers of color to make the flower, which I'll show you how to do. We've embossed a piece of Bubble Bath. We've used the Country Corners die. And we've got some ribbon and designer series paper, and it's all mounted on a Berry Burst cardstock. So for this specific project, I've used the painted texture embossing folder. You can use any, I think just about any embossing folder would work. And we're using Berry Burst for our sentiment. So let's talk about what's in the kit. I think this one, through the magic of video, I have cut some pieces already. So, we have Berry Burst standard A2 size card base. Then we have a piece of designer series paper, which measures 1 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we've got our piece of Bubble Bath, which we're going to emboss. So the before embossed measurement is 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. We've got a piece of, what's it called? Pebbled Path ribbon. We've got this basic white die cut piece for our sentiment. We've got this white piece to cut our flowers. Got some gems, and then I have pecan pie and something wheat, the new color. Shoot, sorry, I can't remember the name of it. Something wheat, and that's going to be for these little sprigs that go around. And then you're going to be cutting. It doesn't really matter what order, actually. You can decide what you would like to do for your flower and design. But for this example, I've got the base of, is in Berry Burst, and then I've got Moody Mauve for that piece, and then Basic White for the top, which is different from this one. This one is Bubble Bath, Berry Burst, and white. But for the sample, you may or may not agree, but I found that the base of the flower being Bubble Bath contrasted with the Bubble Bath base too much, in my opinion. So I changed it up. So this is a little die cut circle, which you can choose to do or not. It's not die cut, it's a punch. It's like a little, how big is it? 1/4 inch circle punch. You could just freehand cut a piece of yellow, but it's intended to go in behind the center of the big flower. It's optional. You can see there, kind of gives you an idea what it looks like. There are stamps and dies in there to give you the same effect. This one here, and then this is the die that goes with it, that goes over it. So you could do that as well. I'm kind of doing it the lazy way. All right, so let's get started. What should we do first? Let's emboss this piece. So we're gonna put it in the painted texture embossing folder, and my die cutting machine is just beside me, so I'm gonna go spine in first. There's our embossed piece. And I don't know if you've ever tried this before, but you can do a couple things with embossing folders. You could spray some water on here and then put your paper in and then run it through your machine, and you're going to get more depth in your emboss. The other thing you can do is you can add ink, like take your ink pad and do this and put your paper on and then run it through, and then you get ink with your embossing. I don't know if you've tried that, but it's an option. Okay, so let's build up our card base, and then we'll deal with all the bits. All right, so for this piece and this piece, on purpose, these sizes are such that there's a bit of overlap here, because I wanted you to be able to have room to put glue so that they stay. So we're gonna add some glue. Doesn't have to be a ton, just enough for the Designer Series paper to stick. So you're gonna put it down, then quickly you're gonna put it on here, and see how it's much bigger than it's supposed to be. So I'm going to, well, not much, it's a little bit. So I'm gonna bring this down so that it's exactly my card front. I hope that made sense. It's not glued down, I'm just doing it for sizing, you know? So it's exactly 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 to fit my card front. Okay, now, if you wanna cover this seam, that's the purpose of this ribbon. If you don't mind the seam, then don't put the ribbon on. Save it for something else. But that's where I was going with this for the ribbon. So I'm gonna put it where I want it. I'm gonna take my tape runner. I'm just gonna add some to the back. You could use Terran tape for this as well. And then I'm just folding to lock that down. Now, this I don't care for. It's a bit flimsy. So I add a couple of glue dots. Try to keep them as flat as you can. Just gonna lift here and tuck. Lift and tuck, ladies. Lift and tuck. I shouldn't say that, ladies and maybe gents too. Okay, perfect. So now let's get this onto our card base. Make sure it's opening the right way. So this is going to be exact like we measured. So get that on. And then I like to stand it up, and I'm kind of making sure sides and it's on the table so it's, you know, going to be perfect. Then just let that get tacky. So we're going to set this aside, and let's go ahead and work on our sentiment piece. So this is a silicone mat. It works similar to the foam mat with photopolymer stamps. I'm just doing 1 sentiment, so I think it'll be fine. Okay, so pardon me, got my berry burst, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna use wishing you the brightest day. Or pardon me, brightest birthday. Get that kind of straight. So I don't want it all the way to the top, but I kind of want it towards the top. Nailed it. That's it for stamping. Now we get to build the flowers. Oh, we gotta die cut our little sprigs. So let's do that. So in your die piece, you have this one. Whoops. So I also think you could use this as sea coral maybe. We do have some holographic paper. I'm just gonna die cut this over here. There's only one of these, so I'll have to run it through a couple of times. But we at Stampin' Up! Have holographic paper, and I think that would look fun. I did try to die cut 2 at a time, which sometimes you can do with dies, but it didn't work with this one. I think there's too many little pieces in the die. So I just hold it like this, and then I give it a bit of a shake to try to loosen it. Sometimes if it's really being stubborn, then like let's say this one wasn't coming apart, it will, but let's just say it wasn't. I'm gonna show you. I'm just gonna put it back through. Great, this is sticking. So just start at one end and get your tip into the vein of the die and run it along there till you get enough to hold on to, and then gently just pull. So this one, for example, let's pretend it wasn't coming out. Sometimes that happens. Just put that right back over. You'll feel where it sits, like it's not sitting there. It just locked into place, and run it back through. And then the next time this would go through, like when I cut the other pieces, I will automatically just go forwards and backwards if the die is being a bit of a pain and doesn't like to cut all the way through on the first one. I might be okay with just those two because I cut them apart. Let's see how we go first before we cut any more. All right, let's build our flowers. Now, this mat is great when you're gluing, especially little things, when you're gluing little bits of things, because the glue will just, I mean, once it's dry, it will rub right off. So if you had paper on your work surface, then sometimes the paper can be sticky, or yeah, like the paper can get sticky. But this, with the rubber mat or silicone mat, it doesn't make your work surface sticky. You can also do mirror stamping with this. Okay, so something happened with my phone there, but we put together our flowers, and now I'm going to show you the mirror technique. So I'm going to stamp. I want them to fit on one. So I'm going to stamp my image on my mat. Sorry, on my paper. Then I'm going to ink it up again, and I'm going to stamp right on my silicone mat. Then I'm going to take my piece of paper that I want to mirror. Now I've got two. Oh, I didn't clean it quite right because you can see a shadow. But then that's how you get the reverse image out of a stamp. This is a little bonus tip. All right, let's put together our rest of our card. So the storage on my phone keeps becoming full. So I'm glad I noticed it. I have made videos before, and I've done a whole 20-minute video and it didn't record, and I didn't notice. So that was a bit of a drag. Hopefully it works out okay this time. All right, so I'm gonna pop the flowers. I'm gonna actually pop all the flowers. So we'll just get dimensionals on all of them. And then what we'll do is we will take our little sprig pieces and we're gonna tuck them into the flowers. So we're going to do this big one here. I'll do this one down here. This one up here. So it's kind of interesting how the color is a bit different on this one. I think you could actually, well, that's not going to work. I have a little piece that's not behaving. So I'm going to, because I put it on the ribbon, so I have this one piece where it's not quite sitting well. So I'm going to tuck this mini dimensional there. That's good. Okay, so on our sprigs, I just snip them apart. Oops. You could leave them if you want and just cut a bunch. It just kind of got to be a bit too much. So I'm just gonna snip. Now, if these kind of bump into where your dimensionals are, then just cut the base so that they don't interfere. Like, let's say I want this one to go here, but the dimensionals hitting it, then I would just snip off this bottom piece. Nobody's gonna know. Mind you, it's better to do it not like I'm doing it, because if you get glue on it and then figure out that it needs to have the bottom cut off, you might smear glue on your project, you know what I mean? So maybe test it dry first. So the last piece to this is the little gems, which I have not lost. They're right here. So I chose, I don't know which ones these are. They have like, they're tinsel, something about tinsel. I think there's a couple of them in the new, what year are we? 2023 to 2024 catalog. There's a couple that have tinsel in the gem. All right, that's it for this one. On to the next one. Bye for now.